Hello. I tried making an intro. Making intro is very hard. I completely see the value in Nandi's little chime. Not throwing shade at him. He's a very nice guy. So I'm just gonna get right into it. I want to go one by one talking about guild raid bosses and how to do them effectively. Because the amount of misinformation or disinformation I see, it is absolutely staggering. So, first boss is Tervigon. I chose Tervigon because an easy starting point at rare and common, you just fight the Tervigon. So it's a very simple boss. The Tervigon and the Winged Hive Tyrant, they exist exclusively to teach players how guild raids work. They don't really pose a threat unless you're super over leveled. But the duration at which you're gonna stay super under leveled is it's gonna be fine. So let's get into it. Before anything, you gotta learn Eldryon is the single best character in the game for guild raids, bar none. His passive Doom, he just stays at range from enemies. As long as he can use his ranged attack, he is 2 hexes away from enemies, where they take 900 more damage per hit. So if you have 10 hits, you take 9,000 damage, or they take 9,000 damage. Uh, the tooltip, it says 2 hexes. However, this is kind of misleading. Uh, so Eldryon should stay 1 hex away from a boss. So it should be Eldryon and hex in between them, and then the boss. So 2 hexes, don't fall into that trap. As long as you can use your ranged attack on the boss with Eldryon, you are in the correct range. Now, for the raid team, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to give you like some silly Billy team. This is what you should be using. This is what you should be striving for. I'm going to try to give you the best information as possible. This is the team: LD, Helbrecht, Anshi, Bellator, and Ragnar. Now, you can use everything else. You can substitute things. You can substitute that Helbrecht with Calgar. You can subtract with on which one was it? Athena or some other buffer. You can use ranged characters. However, this will, at level, these will let you get like 1,000,000 damage. This is how you effectively beat the Tervigon. Now, first things first, Eldryon. He's the best character in the game for guild raids, so he is in every single guild raid team, aside from very, very, very specific conditions. Helbrecht, he is also a buffer. He is much less of a universal buffer because his buff is very conditional in the way that it only works against psychic enemies. Luckily for us, Tervigon is psychic. Helbrecht's buff is actually better than Eldryon's because Eldryon's only 900 for non-Eldar and Helbrecht is 1,500 for everything that is right next to him. On Shi, he's okay. He exists exclusively to use his active on Bellator, so Bellator can use his active 2 times. The name of the game is proccing Eldryon passive as many times as humanly possible, and Bellator is the single best character to do that. Because he himself, he has 6 hits. Each of his summons have 6 hits, and summons that are adjacent to Bellator, when he attacks, attack again. And don't forget that summons attack before your characters who can move. So after the summons are out in the field, the next turn, then it starts, Bellator summon is going to attack, the other Bellator summon is going to attack. Okay, that's already 12 activations of the Eldryon passive. Now Bellator gets in between them, attacks the boss, that's 18. Now those two that he was next to, they will attack an additional time. So that 18 becomes 30. So that's 30 procs of Eldryon passive without taking into account anything else. Ragnar Blackmane, he's the single best character in the game. He has 7 hits base. If the thing moves, he chases after them. He gets 10 hits. He has a 20% damage booster. He really likes being next to buffers, such as Helbrecht, because Helbrecht gives him 12,000 damage when taking his 10 hits. So this is a very ideal team to use against the boss. Now, fighting the boss is quite simple. It's not very difficult. So as soon as the fight starts, you just want to bum rush the boss. I've drawn this little, very primitive infographic. So you just run at the boss, get into position, and you start attacking. So first things first, you always want to make sure Eldryon is 1 hex away from a boss at all times, that he can always ranged attack the boss. If you can melee the boss, you're too close. You don't want that. Now, after Eldryon's in position, what you want to do is you want to use Ragnar Howl, because it's going to do more damage, right? And you're going to move Ragnar in a place where he can hit the boss. However, if there's high ground, so a higher level of elevation next to the boss, he wants to get there because standing on high ground gives you 50% more damage. After this, you want to move Helbrecht right next to Ragnar, so Ragnar gets the 1,500 damage bonus, which is, you get that times 10, plus you get Eldryon's passive, plus you get the 20% from his Beast Slayer trait, and then you get 50% from being on high ground. It adds up really fast. And then Bellator goes and he does not attack. He uses his summons right away. Because it's going to be turn 2 or turn 1 at that point. So the first time you go, you just attack with Bellator because you want to use the Ragnar active because it's all melees and Bellator is only melee. So you attack him, cool. Next turn, you use Bellator active. So because it's turn 2, now Bellator summons 2 summons. Anshi goes next to Bellator and uses his active on Bellator. This lets Bellator use his active again next turn. So now you're going to get 2 Bellator summons from the turn 2 activation and 3 Bellator summons from the turn 3 activation. Now, from this point onwards, you're just going to wail at the boss until it dies. Because if you look at the way they're placed, you can see I've signified the Bellator with the bigger icon and the Bellator summons with the smaller icons. Because what you want to do is you actually don't want Bellator standing next to Helbrecht. You want one of his summons to stand next to Helbrecht. Because the way it works is when the turn starts, all of the summons are going to attack. And then when Bellator attacks the boss, the summons adjacent to Bellator will also attack. So that means if Bellator is standing next to Helbrecht, he's going to be only standing next to one of his own summons, and he only activates one summon, and the Helbrecht buff gets procced 6 times. However, if Bellator is next to 2 of his summons, one of which is adjacent to Helbrecht, what that will do is he'll trigger an additional summon, Bellator, and then Bellator summon will get 12 hits in. That means 12 procs of the Helbrecht passive. Now, ads will spawn. You can use the Bellator summons will wander off, but they'll kill them. It'll be fine. And with high ground on your side, you should be able to kill this boss quite effectively. At higher ranks, I've seen people do a million, 1.1 million, 1.2 million in Bloody Rose. So, well, I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for watching and stay safe.